Yeah, this talk is basically going to cover about, well, close to a decade's worth of research that we've carried out on peracetic acid at the Freshwater Institute. So it goes back a ways. I just wanted to acknowledge some of my co-authors. I guess because it's been almost a decade, there's a lot of people that aren't listed here, but Dr. John Davidson, we had Christine and Natalie from WaterChem, and of course, Dr. Dave, Lifetime Achievement Award, Strauss. Dave's had a long history of peracetic acid research and has been an excellent collaborator throughout the years. So the topic of disinfection in recirculating systems is it's an area of interest and research, and there's not a lot of answers. You can see here we ran a survey through the Control Aqua program. We ran a survey of disinfection protocols in Norwegian and North American RAS facilities, and essentially it's Wild West. I mean, everybody has their own protocol. A lot of them haven't been validated. So we've been very interested in this, and the research of disinfection in RAS really predates my time at the Freshwater Institute. My old supervisor, Steve Sommerfeld, did a lot of work on UV and ozonation. So this is just our particular flavor of RAS at the Institute. So this is Cornell-style dual drain tank. We've got solids control with radial flow settler and microstream filtration. And then it's pumped up through a fluidized sand biofilter, and then degassed a serpent column, and then a low head oxygenator adds oxygen before the water goes back to the tank. And so way back when, we found that it was most efficacious when you apply ozonation in the low head oxygenator, have a generator here to produce ozone, and then sort of a double whammy, use UV to basically kill the bacteria. So ozone, to an extent, is bactericidal, but when you use them in combination, the ozone breaks down a lot of that particulate matter that would normally shield the bacteria from UV. And so it becomes very efficacious, and it's also quite useful because that UV breaks down the ozone residual, which could be harmful to your fish. And so this is just a good sort of illustrative table here from a publication back in 2007. So Steve and company were looking at ozone and UV in combination. So you can see here, no ozone, UV. Obviously there's no percentage removal of heterotrophs. But when you apply ozone at a certain dosage with no UV, there is a bactericidal effect, a decent amount of removal, but when you combine the two, you can have very high ozone plus UV, and it can remove up to 100% of heterotrophs. Whether you want to do that or not is really a matter of debate, because there is a lot of data out there that suggests that having microbially mature water in RAS is really quite beneficial for a lot of reasons. But at least you can see that this is very efficacious, and you might consider something like this, say, under influence or what have you, or your effluent for that matter. So if you're in a situation where that's not feasible, or if it's simply too expensive, there's been more of an approach looking at low-dose therapeutics to the water disinfectants at a low-dose level that can keep your basically your target pathogens in check, but at the same time, if it's low dose, it's not going to impact those key nitrifiers in your biofilter. So you could apply a therapeutic dose in the tank, but it would be useless if you're actually allowing that water to hit your biofilter, because it would kill your nitrifiers. So this low dose approach is what we've been focusing on. This has been pioneered by some folks over in Denmark. So we've been focusing on peracetic acid. So it's essentially acetic acid and hydrogen peroxide combined to form peracetic acid. These folks, they have model recirculating farms in Denmark, and we've got Drs. Lars Fleming Petersen and Niels Henrik Henriksen. They are working with a farmer here, and she is applying a daily pulse dose of peracetic acid. And basically what they're doing there is that they were interested in replacing formalin because they were using formalin on a fairly regular basis to keep their pathogens down. Formalin is a human carcinogen and it was being phased out in the EU, so they needed a replacement. And peracetic acid has been essentially very successful in that regard. The only problem is that peracetic acid tends to be not quite as robust in terms of, compared to formalin. Formalin can work across a wide range of water quality parameters. In a nutshell, each farm really has to develop their own protocol for peracetic acid because it's very sort of finicky and really its efficacy is really different under different water quality conditions. So we've done some work looking at this in RAS water. So we wanted to see just how efficacious it was at the bactericidal effect of a particular fish pathogen. So we looked at Phylobacterium columnaire, that causes the columnaris disease, as well as Yersinia repperi and Weissella seti. We wanted to achieve essentially a 6-log reduction down to 0 colony-forming units. And so we looked at concentrations of peracetic acid and duration. And so for Phylobacteria, we're able to get that 6-log reduction at 3 milligrams per liter at 5 minutes. Yersinia repperi, sorry about this slide, by the way. I think we're all expecting a bigger screen. But you can see here with Yersinia repperi, we're able to achieve the same at 5 milligrams per liter for 5 minutes. Weissella seti was a bit more difficult. We needed 10 milligrams per liter for 10 minutes to kill that bug entirely. Probably because it's a gram-positive agent, so they've got a thicker cell wall, a bit more resistant. But so we can demonstrate that in RAS water we can kill these pathogens, but as you can see, even at 3 milligrams per liter, that's going to be enough to kill your fish, unfortunately. Very efficacious against pathogen. So really, protocols need to be developed that are lower dosage but longer term. And so I'm just going to go through some of the studies that we've done at Freshwater Institute. The very first one was based on industry feedback that the Atlantic salmon industry, they noticed that they would have higher mortalities after vaccination, a sort of post-vaccination stress, and that was due to saprolegnia, that fungus. And so we wanted to replicate this. We had 12 different experimental scale RAS, and we looked at, so we vaccinated all these fish, IC injection, and then we looked 6 weeks afterwards at daily pulse doses of 0.2, 0.5, and 1 milligram per liter. We wanted to see if there was any efficacy against saprolegniasis, but we also wanted to see if there was any impact on biofiltration at those concentrations. So just some results here. You can see with the survival, there was significantly higher survival in all of the peracetic acid treatments. But as you can see here, the survival was even good in the control. We weren't actually able to replicate that high mortality post-vaccination. But still a significant difference. Thankfully, at those doses, biofiltration was not impacted when we looked at tan removal efficiency. And growth performance was a little impacted compared to the control. So there was a bit of an impact treating fish every day, but not substantially in terms of overall fish production. But one interesting thing we found, we didn't been able to replicate that mortality event, but looking at morbidity, there was significantly less observable fungus on fish as you go up in dosage for peracetic acid. So that was very good news there to see. Another study that we ran, so at Freshwater Institute, we tend to see fungus at different stages, and probably our highest impact stage is right around when the fish